Hey guys, welcome back. It's Veronica. In today's video, I'm going to be doing another plan with me, and this one is going to be for the month of July. So the first thing I'm going to work on is my cover page for the month of July. So I just start out by writing Happy July, and then I went over July quite a few times just to make it thicker and bolder. And then I went over it a little bit more on certain sides just to make it look a little bit more like calligraphy. Then for happy, I'm going to be including red, white, and blue. Since I do live in the US, I celebrate the 4th of July, and so I thought this would be a good place to incorporate the colors of the flag. Then once I finished writing out Happy July, I just went around and made a bunch of fireworks, which were actually pretty simple. It's just like drawing an asterisk and then just kind of filling in the center a little bit more and then the outside a little less. So once I finish with my cover page, I'm now going to be moving on to my monthly spread. So I'm going to start out by drawing my calendar on one page. I like to do this, that way I have space to write birthdays and events and everything. So when I'm doing my weekly spreads, I can look at that and reference it so that I know everything that's going on and all the things I have to do for maybe the event or that day. On the top, I just wrote July 2017, pretty simple. I also thickened up July again, just because I think it looks better than just simple cursive. And then under July, I'm just going to be drawing a longer rectangle box, and then I'm going to fill this in with each day of the week. And I suck at measuring out, apparently, because I measured out 8 days, and so I had a little extra space on the end, which didn't really bother me. But if you guys are doing this, I would definitely measure out the length of the rectangle and then split it 7 ways. Then below that, I made a much larger box, and this is going to be for the whole calendar part of this. So if you guys don't know how I usually make my calendars, I start out by making a large box the size that I need it to be, and then I section it off. It's usually 7 across and then 5 down. Sometimes it varies. Also, halfway through this, one of my gel pens kind of ran out of ink, because I do use these gel pens a lot, and so I just had to use a regular pen, which works pretty good. But I do notice the gel pens are darker, and they also write a lot smoother than normal pens. So then on the side of the calendar, since I did have space, I also decided to add more fireworks just to kind of go with the 4th of July theme. So then once I finished that, I just went back and wrote the date on each one of the squares for the month, and then I also added in a few more fireworks. So now that I finished with the calendar page, I'm going to be going on to the next page, which is just going to have a bunch of sections for planning and writing notes and to-dos and goals and stuff for the month. So to do this, I'm going to be basically separating the whole page off into a couple different rectangle shapes. And how I've been doing this too is I've been leaving the top part of the rectangle open. That way when I write in the words, I can have them incorporated in the rectangle. So what I usually do is I write whatever this little rectangle is for, and then I will take my ruler and connect the rest of the rectangle to the words. And I also wrote next week. I noticed I meant to say next month, and this section would be for things that I need to do the next month. So then I did have a little extra space, and in this space I just made a little speech bubble and then wrote a quote. So that's it for my monthly page. It's pretty simple. Next, we're going to be moving on to my weekly spread. So to do this whole planner setup, I'm just going to be making rectangles again, and then I'll write the day of the week up on top, just like in the last page. But this time I'm going to be doing cursive, and then I'll just connect the ends of the cursive to the top of the box. So since the first 2 days of July are Sunday and Saturday, which are weekends, I'm actually not going to include these because I usually like to plan on weekdays rather than weekends, and so I probably won't use these two little squares. But if you do want to plan for those days, then you could just easily add them in. So then once I have all the boxes planned out for the week, I'm also going to be putting the date in the corner. And I made these kind of large. You could actually probably make them smaller. I don't know why I went so large with these. And then I'm just going to section these off from the rest of the rectangle. And if you guys want to make more sections, you totally could. I used to have a section for workout and a section to track my water intake as well. I haven't been doing those lately because I feel like I've been getting behind in them and then they just don't get filled out. So I just leave it blank, and then if I feel like tracking it, I'll just actually write it in the rectangle shape. So then next, down on the bottom, I'm going to be writing a spot for notes. And then I'm also going to write a spot for next week. If you guys have seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I always have a spot for next week. That way I can plan for the coming week. Then next to the next week on the opposite page, I'm going to be making a small tracker. You guys have probably noticed that I didn't have my large habit tracker that I always have, and this is because this hasn't been getting filled out either. I feel like in the summer I've been super busy, and so a lot of things just don't get filled out. So I think I'd rather plan things out on a weekly basis rather than a monthly basis. That way if I feel like doing tracking one week I can, or maybe the next week I don't have to. So to make this tracker, instead of doing dots like I do, I'm actually going to be making small squares. At the top of the square section I'll put the days, and then since I did make the rectangle a little longer than it needed to be, I'm going to add a little washi tape to kind of cover it up a little bit. Now you can just write your habits next to each box, and then you can kind of check off each box like a little checklist when you do that habit. Then below the habit tracker, I'm going to add a little spot for goals. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to fill out my habits for my habit tracker. Then I'm also going to be adding a little bit of an arrow right below the habit tracker thing, and also some little fireworks as well. Don't be afraid to decorate this more or less. It's totally up to you guys. Lately, I've been kind of having a hard time getting inspired for my bullet journals, so they are a little bit more plain and simple. Plus, I have not had the time to put into them, so these are just a little bit more of quick setups. I get really busy in the summer, and so I definitely don't have as much time as I do in the fall and winter. So hopefully towards August, September, I'll start getting into doing more decorative bullet journal spreads. But yeah, that is it for my weekly spread. So then I'm going to go back to my monthly page, and I'm actually going to be doing a little bit more. I think this page needed a little bit more color, so I added some red around the quote along with blue. And then I did notice the part where I wrote next week rather than next month. And so I took a scrap piece of paper and I took some two-sided tape and I just put it over the week part, and then I wrote month. Alright, so that is it for my monthly setup. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!